We need to have a bit of a yarn. Now, this is a topic that makes some of us a little bit uncomfortable, but I figured that someone had to do it, and I wasn't sure who else was going to. I really don't want to have to make this video, but the fact is, I have some heritage from one of the very places where Bruce Pascoe claims to have Aboriginal ancestry. I have a camera and I've got a bit of time today, so I feel a little bit of a responsibility to go into some detail for you about why I and many others see Pascoe's fraudulent claims to Aboriginality to be a bit of an issue. So first, let me give you a bit of a background on who I am and my credentials to speak on such an issue. I am a Yurraluroi, Gamilaroi, Yorta Yorta and Yuin man, and I also have British, Irish, Swedish and German ancestry. But today I'm speaking to you as an Aboriginal man regarding someone who is falsely claiming to be one of us. I am a musician and a photographer, and through my travels supporting cultural maintenance and revival in various communities, I've built relationships with trust and respect. And this work goes some way to give me a bit of an understanding of what is true and important within our communities and cultures. I'm a man of the left-leaning political persuasion, and you don't hear from many people from this side of politics speaking out against Bruce Pascoe or critiquing his claims to Aboriginality very often. So I want to explain a bit of why that is, because it's important in understanding how this whole situation got to where it is. I can understand why a lot of Aboriginal people and lefty allies hesitate to question him. Pascoe is famous for writing Dark Emu, a book that challenges the historical narrative that Aboriginal people were just nomadic hunter-gatherers, claiming instead that they were sophisticated farmers. Because of that book, a lot of people see him as being firmly on the Aboriginal side, and any critique of Bruce Pascoe is going to be weaponized by the right in what people are calling the culture wars. People want to protect our history, and they don't want to be labelled as racists or traitors to the cause. So they've been willing to look the other way and let claims of his Aboriginality slide. They also see Dark Emu as a strong rebuttal against the validation of terra nullius. Aboriginal people being nomadic does not give any justification for terra nullius and the invasion from British colonialists. But the truth matters. Dealing with someone pretending to be Aboriginal is not something our communities are used to handling on this scale. When we let the feel-good factor outweigh the truth, it has unintended consequences for everyone. So let's have a look at what Pascoe actually claims and how those claims have conveniently shifted over time. Pascoe currently claims to be a man of three mobs.
I identify as Yuin and Bonorong and Tasmanian because we can trace family back to those regions.
But if we look back, his public identification as Aboriginal didn't really start until he was about 40 years old. In the 1980s, he wrote a fiction novel called Fox about a young man discovering his Aboriginality. A reviewer criticised the book saying, "One is conscious that the ideas, fears and longings of Fox are as here described for him from the outside with an overlay of a white author's interpretation." Pascoe is, after all, imagining the psyche of an Aboriginal person, and it is not possible for him to convey all that the concept of my people would mean to, say, Colin Johnson or Sally Morgan. He writes as a humane, informed liberal, but as a white man as well. And shortly after this critique, Pascoe started identifying as Aboriginal. In the 1990s, he placed an ad in the Koori Mail asking for help to find his Koori family, because he had no actual proof. He explicitly claimed his Aboriginality came from his mother's side through his great-grandmother Sarah Matthews, who he said was born in Dudley, Victoria, down there in Gippsland. But genealogical records prove that every single one of Pascoe's ancestors is of British descent. Sarah Matthews wasn't born in Victoria. Birth records show she was born in Dudley, England. In 2012, decades after claiming she was the Aboriginal link, Pascoe finally admitted that she was in fact English. So, did he retract his Aboriginal identity after his main claim was debunked? No. He shifted his story and suddenly claimed his heritage came through his father's Tasmanian side, citing mysterious clues written on the back of old family photographs, which he later admitted were just names. He also justified this connection by claiming his family had Aboriginal neighbours and that Aboriginal people signed as witnesses to his parents' weddings. As Michael Mansell from the Tasmanian Aboriginal Centre pointed out, no mention there of his parents being Aboriginal, nor does Pascoe name who these Aboriginal friends were. This begins the pattern of Pascoe's elusiveness on challenges to his identity claims. No names, no direct statements about whom he gets Aboriginal heritage. All general and vague, but powerfully suggestive, leaving the reader to conclude there must be something there. Not only does Pascoe not name the Aborigines so his version could be checked out, he does not explain how he knew about this. And presumably he was not at the wedding. Anyway, having Aboriginal friends does not make a white man an Aboriginal. This brings us to how actual Aboriginal communities view him. In Australia, there is a widely accepted 3-point criteria to confirm Aboriginal heritage. You must be of Aboriginal descent, you must self-identify as Aboriginal, and crucially, you must be accepted as such by the community. All 3 must apply. Pascoe fails the descent test, and he utterly fails the community acceptance test. Official representatives from the communities he claims have actively rejected him. Michael Mansell stated bluntly that Pascoe has no Tasmanian Aboriginal heritage and called his claims absurd. Jason Briggs, the chairman of the Bunwurrung Land and Sea Council, angrily rejected Pascoe's claims, stating they have a sophisticated ancestral database and do not accept him as possessing any Bunwurrung ancestry at all. So, what about his claim to the Yuin people? Well, this goes back to when respected Yuin elder, the late Uncle Max Harrison, took Pascoe through what was described as a ceremony. Uncle Max had a very open heart and simply took Pascoe at his word that he had Aboriginal heritage elsewhere, and then adopted him as Yuin. But why would another Aboriginal man need to be adopted into another mob if he was already Aboriginal elsewhere? There is also another respected Yuin elder, Uncle Ozzie Cruz. Uncle Ozzie Cruz also took Pascoe at his word, saying, Bruce Pascoe is who he declares he is. Uncle Ozzie also said, Bruce has done a tremendous job to identify a lot of culture of significance to our people, and that's coming from his desire to identify. I have a lot of respect for him. However, most Yuin people now actively dispute Pascoe's claim to Yuin kinship, stating he has no ancestral Yuin heritage. Some people argue that Bruce Pascoe has done a great deal for Aboriginal people, and even if his claim to Aboriginality is fraudulent, any discrediting of Pascoe will lead to discrediting Dark Emu and hence discrediting Aboriginal culture. I can tell you that the distorted facts and misinterpretations of Aboriginal culture within Dark Emu does more to damage the credibility of Aboriginal culture and the institutions that platform it, but that's for another video. So, if the genealogy proves he is of English descent and that the actual Indigenous communities reject him, How has he been able to get away with this on such a massive scale? The answer lies with the institutional enablers. Pascoe won a $30,000 Indigenous Writers' Prize. He was appointed as an Enterprise Professor in Indigenous Agriculture at the University of Melbourne, and the ABC has continuously promoted him to schools and the Australian public. These institutions failed to verify his identity because of a fear within modern academia and the media. It is said that many academics and historians privately knew his claims were nonsense, but they were afraid to speak out publicly because they feared being labelled racist, which could destroy their careers and cost them access to remote research sites. But why does this matter so much? Why can't we just let him write his books and identify how he wants? Because when we let people falsely claim Aboriginality without question or consequence, it causes harm to legitimate Aboriginal people. We are going through an epidemic of race shifting. The 2021 census reported a massive 25% increase in the Indigenous population, heavily skewed by people who've lived their whole lives as non-Indigenous, suddenly ticking a box. This isn't a victimless crime. These false claimants use vague connections to bypass scrutiny, taking high-paying jobs like university and parliamentary positions that are specifically designed for Indigenous people. Many Aboriginal-specific opportunities designed to address intergenerational disadvantage and past injustices fail to reach their intended targets when taken by people with unverified heritage. These positions ensure that who hold them bring an authentic perspective on Aboriginal community and culture. Their experience, understanding, and cultural responsibility make them best placed to support Aboriginal self-determination. These unchecked fake claims make a mockery of the legitimate reality of true Aboriginal heritage. Meanwhile, a white person with a vague feeling of connection on their journey or having a story about an Aboriginal neighbour at a wedding faces little scrutiny from the media or universities, signs a statutory declaration and takes the resources meant for our mob, along with being in positions of influence in politics, academics or the arts that give a distorted view of Aboriginal people and Aboriginal culture. We have to protect our history, but we also have to protect our identity. It's okay to have allies, and it's okay for non-Indigenous people to feel a strong connection to our country and our communities, but we can't validate personal delusions with our respect and our resources when the basic legal criteria of ancestry and community acceptance aren't met. I know this is a tough conversation for those in positions to make these decisions on people, especially for those of us on the left who want to support champions of Indigenous history and not be lumped in with the right-wing bedfellows. But we can't let false claims slide just because it's politically convenient. The truth matters. Thank you for watching, and please feel free to share this video with your mob or whoever you think might need to hear about it.